All right, welcome to lesson 2 for chapter 6. We are still talking about ecology. This lesson is going to focus on population ecology. So learning goal is that you'll be able to describe what a population is and how populations can be characterized. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to compare survivorship attributes of primate and grasshopper populations. So we're going to look at the survivorship curve, and based on that, you should be able to describe how a primate survivorship is over time versus a grasshopper. You should also be able to compare populations of animals during exponential growth phases to populations of animals during carrying capacity phases of logistic growth. So what's that population growth look like in those different phases? And then differentiate between density independent and density dependent factors in population regulation. And last but not least, explain why interspecific competition is so intense. So let's talk about what a population is. So populations are groups of individuals of the same species that occupy a given area at the same time and have unique attributes. So if we have a population, or if we have a group of organisms that are the same species, that's a population as long as they're in the same area. We define what that area is. So that could be Oklahoma, it could be a square mile, it could be a specific area, whatever we define it as. So in this picture, we have a population of zebras. All right, so this is a survivorship curve. We talk about these when we talk about population growth because it's important to see how populations change over time as a result of birth, death, and dispersal. So there are 3 different curves that we can see. So the first is type 1. So type 1 populations are going to be things like humans. So high survivorship in young age, and then survivorship dips off as we get older. So we typically die of old age because we have parental care, just like most other big mammals. Which is called K-select. So we are caring for our young. So they have high survivorship as they're young, and then survivorship dips as we get older. Type 2 is, it's just equal across the board. So when we're reading this graph, down at the bottom is age, this is going to be time, and then over on the y-axis is our number of survivors, so survivorship. So for type 2, which is going to be some rodents, it's just equal over time. And then type 3 is going to be things like fish and invertebrates. They have like a boom-bust kind of cycle. They give birth to a lot of offspring that typically don't survive. So think about fish. How many eggs fish lay at one time? Most of those fish are not going to make it to reproductive age. And that's what we see in type 3 survivorship populations. And then this is a population growth graph. So let's look at exponential growth first. So this is the purple. The purple here is exponential growth. So it's the potential to increase by a constant ratio per unit time. We also see a little bit of exponential growth at the beginning of the blue curve, but the purple is like an exponential growth curve. So the reason most populations don't just exponentially grow forever is because we have a thing called environmental resistance. And this is constraints placed on growth by climate, food, space, and other factors. You can't just continually grow because you don't have unlimited resources. So because we don't have unlimited resources, most populations reach what's called carrying capacity. And this is a population size of a particular environment, or that a particular environment can support. So it's the max population that can be sustained over time. So most of the time, this doesn't look like beautiful like this when we're looking at population growth. Usually the population grows up a little bit and then comes back down. But the max population that can be supported is carrying capacity. When we're taking carrying capacity into account, we have an S-shaped growth curve. You got to use your imagination a little bit, but this is like a J, and then the blue is an S. So an S-shaped growth curve because population reaches the environment's carrying capacity. That's logistic growth. It's logical. It makes sense. So when we talk about population regulation, there are density dependent and density independent factors that we see. So let's look at density independent first. So these are factors that limit regardless of population size. So it's independent of that density. Doesn't matter how many organisms there are, these factors will affect it the same. So this could be temperature, so extreme cold. That could be loss of habitat like deforestation. And then density dependent factors, so these are more severe when the population density is high, are things like resource competition, so competition for food and water, disease, the closer we are, the more people there are in an area, disease is going to affect us more, and then predation and parasitism. One more kind of population limiter that we have when we're talking about a population, which means one species, right, is intra-specific competition. We'll talk about inter-specific competition in the next lesson, but intra-specific is just one species. So it's competition for resources among members of the same species, intra-specific. So in this picture, we have some animals back here that are the same species competing for this water. We have a couple zebras in there, but intraspecific is between this group here. And this is often really intense because the resource requirements are nearly identical for all individuals. So if every organism in that population wants the same things and needs the same things, then that competition is going to be much greater. Versus interspecific, which again we'll go over in the next lesson, that's different species. So every species has a slightly different niche, a slightly different thing that they're after. So the competition isn't quite as bad. All right, that is the end of this lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you in the next one.